Hey, what's up? I'm Jada, and today I'm going to be talking about my experience at UC Irvine. I am currently a senior, literally graduating in like 2 weeks.
Yes, the rumors are true. Here's my sash.
I graduate under a computer engineering degree, which I'm so proud of myself for being able to complete that. And I just wanted to dive into my experience with the computer engineering program at UCI, just so I can remember like what my college classes and college life was like, but also to help future people if they're looking into going into computer engineering. So yeah, we're just gonna dive in, and I'm kind of just gonna go over each class, maybe like rate the hardness for me and how much I like the class. I also just want to do like a brief like introduction about myself, like the type of student I am and everything. So I'm just a very hardworking student. Some quarters I would get all A's, sometimes I would get A's and B's, just depends on the classes and everything. I study really hard. I think the reason I do so well and why people like say or like think I'm smart, like I know I'm smart, but like I just work really hard for it. I study my ass off and I'm very disciplined and organized. So that's just who I am. I just wanted to preface that. I know everyone has different study habits and just different personalities and everything, but this is just the perspective from me. Okay, let's go back in time to freshman year. This was in 2017. All of freshman year, I only took 3 classes each quarter because, not to show off or anything, but I basically had all of my GEs done coming into college because I took like so many APs in high school. I basically only had to take 2 GEs my senior year, and that was it. So my first quarter in fall of 2017, I took EECS 12, which was Introduction to Programming. That was my first time basically like ever coding. I was so intimidated and literally so scared. But we learned Python once I was starting to understand like some of the concepts like loops and like if statements and stuff like that. I started getting more comfortable. Also, I would always ask the TAs for help on assignments because the TAs typically tend to be like pretty helpful. So never be afraid to ask TAs for help because they're probably just willing to help you unless they're like a mean TA, which like can happen sometimes. But if not, a really big thing is like you need to make friends. Like I did not have any friends in my classes freshman year because I was just shy, but you need to make friends in your classes because you all just like help each other on assignments. Obviously don't cheat or like break academic dishonesty, but like you can definitely help each other. So make friends. That's very important if the TAs or professors aren't helpful to you. And then I took Math 2B, which was calculus. I did take AP calculus, but I only got a 3 on the test. So I only got to skip like calculus 1. So I had to like retake calculus BC, but that was honestly really easy for me because I already learned it. So I just retook it. And then I also had to take physics 2, which is basically the introduction to physics. You could test out of this, or you could like have the AP physics test to not have to take this class. This class was honestly really hard for me because physics is hard. I think I took physics like my sophomore or junior year in high school, so it was like a while since I like knew physics concepts, so that's why it was pretty hard, but I got an A- in that, which is cool. And then the winter 2018 quarter, I took writing 39C, which was like the writing class that you had to take. I just remember having to do a lot of research. I don't really have much to say on this one just because again it doesn't have to do with engineering, so I'm kind of gonna gloss over it, but that's something that everyone at UCI has to take. Oh, I took Math 2D, which was multivariable calculus. I'm trying to remember what this class was like. Oh wait, I killed it in this class. I got an A+ in it. I remember like getting like hundreds on the midterms and everything. For some reason that class just like really clicked with me. And then physics 7C, classical physics. Let me look what that was about. So this is where we learned about force, energy, momentum, rotation, and gravity. Oh, I remember working actually like pretty hard in this class. Like I'll insert a video. I remember I took this video because I thought like what I was learning was like so cool and like so complicated. Just like do the example problems and like you should be fine in that class. I'm sorry my freshman ones like aren't good descriptions, but I don't remember these a lot. Okay, 2018 spring quarter, I took EECS 1, which that's just like a class basically telling you how to plan the rest of your computer engineering degree. At UCI, they tell you like what classes to take, I think. They like have guest speakers talk about different computer engineering, electrical engineering fields. That class was honestly pointless. And then EECS 20, okay, EECS 20. This class was C programming and also, what is it called? Machine language programming, what is it called? It starts with an A. It's on the tip of my tongue. Assembly language. That was the word. Assembly language. I remembered it. Okay. I remember the assignments being pretty easy, but the tests were not easy. So I got a B in this class. I honestly forget what the tests were like, but I remember them being like pretty difficult. And also EECS 31. I struggled with this class. This was basically talking about like gates, like AND gates, OR gates, talking about like binary, hex, stuff like that. And the thing that was so difficult to me about this class was like I didn't know what we were learning. There was no explanation like, oh, this is why gates exist, or like this is why binary exists, or like this is what like they do. I was just really lost and confused at first because I had no idea that like AND gates, OR gates, like hex, whatever existed before that class, but I eventually figured it out. And then I did Physics 7D. It was about electricity and magnesium. Yeah, I honestly don't remember that class. Next up, we have sophomore year. We have 2018 fall quarter. Also, I started working at Starbucks on campus spring 2018. So my freshman spring quarter, I was working at the same time. So also 2018 fall, I was also working. And my classes, like, they got a lot harder. I was really struggling, but we pushed through. So I had EECS 22, which was advanced C programming. I struggled a lot in this class. The tests were okay. The assignments were just pretty hard. It was just such a step up from the previous coding assignments that we had done. The very first assignment we had was to do a Connect 4 program, and I was like, what? We had 2 weeks to do it, and like I was the most stressed out I could have ever been. I honestly don't know how I survived. And you also do like image manipulation programs, like applying filters onto images. And you also do like video manipulation programs, like applying filters onto videos. They were like cool, but it was just hard at the time, and I remember just like spending like my Friday nights just coding away. Yes, that class is hard, but it's honestly worth it. It makes you learn like what your coding assignments are going to be like in the coming classes, because it is going to take a lot of time and a lot of effort. Oh, also in this class you started using the command line, which was really cool. I didn't know the command line existed before I took this class, so we learned how to use that. We coded in Vim, which I kind of hate. Like, why couldn't we use a regular IDE? It honestly gave me a solid programming foundation. And then EECS 31L, I don't remember what EECS 31L is, I'm sorry. Math 3A was Intro to Linear Algebra. I remember doing pretty good in this class. This class like wasn't too hard for me, honestly. I ended up getting an A- in it. And then Physics 7E, that was about fluids, oscillations, waves, and optics. I really struggled in it. I got a B- in it. I just did not vibe with those physics topics, I guess. But we got through it, you know, we pushed through. And then 2019 winter quarter. This was quite the quarter, let me tell you. This was honestly one of the, I think, harder quarters that I've taken. Starts off with EECS 22L. This class, very important, very crucial in your computer engineering degree at UC Irvine. So this was software engineering in C, basically a continuation of EECS 22. In this class, you basically are in a group of about 7 people, and together you make a chess program and a chat program. This class was really important because you learned how to use version control like GitHub. You worked as a team, you did software documentation, and you also just built the programs themselves, which were pretty hard. But with a team, it like should be easier, right? But sometimes your team isn't cooperative and This did happen with me, I just know with like other people's experiences. And it was random, so I guess this class is also supposed to teach you like sometimes you won't work with people that you like and you kind of have to deal with it. But luckily that wasn't the case with me. I know it was the case with some of my friends and I feel bad for them, but I was a lucky one and I got a great team. I think a major takeaway from this was just teamwork, version control, and also just getting better at debugging and just coding in general. And then EECS 55 was engineering probability, so kind of like statistics. I honestly don't remember like any of the theories or any of the like formulas from this class. The only thing that I really remember is the N choose M formula. That's it. But it's just good to know in general, I guess. It's a good class, except it's just really hard. And then EECS 70A, this class was hard for me. This was our first electrical engineering class where we learned about the introduction to circuits, and I'm not good at circuits. I realize that. That's why I'm like software now. I don't want to touch hardware. I've never done really well in my circuit classes, and this was the very first one I took, and I failed the midterm and I cried for days. But it's okay. If you fail a midterm or anything, just remember that there's a curve. If you're around the average score, you're okay. Just ride the curve. I was a little under the curve, but I still passed. I got a B-. That class is also just very important for computer engineering because you do a lot more circuit classes and it's just like the foundation of circuits. And then Math 3D. Math 3D was differential equations. That class was also pretty hard, not gonna lie. It was the last like math class we had to take, which was exciting. 2019 winter quarter was just a grind, and it was pretty hard. But look, I'm still alive. I survived. Now on to 2019 spring quarter. Oh, this quarter was hard AF too. So it started off, we have object-oriented systems and programming with EECS 40. This class is honestly also super important. This is where you learn about object-oriented programming, which is huge in computer science. We learned it in Java. We basically programmed a calculator and then a game called Core Wars, and then the last two projects were a Tetris game and a Super Mario Bros. Game. And those were super hard because you obviously had to also have a front-end interface, and we had never done programming like that before. Like the programming we had done in the past was all just like in the terminal, never anything with an interface really. The programs were honestly just hard because you had to make like full-on games in a matter of like 2 weeks, and they were honestly 40-hour plus projects. Keep in mind that your coding projects are just gonna take a while. You just gotta grind through it, and I promise you, you can finish it. I didn't think I'd be able to finish the programs, but I did. And if I can do it, you can do it, okay? And then EECS 50 is discrete time signals. This class was also very hard. I honestly can't remember what I learned. I kind of just did the class, but that class wasn't really important to me and what I wanted to do. So I didn't really take anything away from it. And also I took EECS 70B, and that was just a step up from the introduction to circuits class, just the next class in the series. I don't remember much from my circuits classes because I'm not really going to utilize that in my career, so it kind of just went in one ear and out the other. But I retained the information for the midterm and the final. Again, really interesting to learn about, but not necessarily something that I'm interested in. And then also took ICS 60, so this was a computer science class, which was discrete math for computer science. This class was pretty easy. I think this class is about like logic, binary like logic, ands, ors, stuff like that. Pretty easy to understand, and this class was definitely important. I would say it gives you a solid foundation for just logic in general, for computer science logic. Now we're on to 2019 fall quarter. So this was the start of my junior year. So first off, we have the wonderful EECS 12, Organization of Digital Computers. This class was my worst class. It just didn't click with me. I studied really hard and I full on failed the midterm. I got a 30% and the average was probably like 60 something. So I like failed the midterm and it really messed with my head. Cried so much and I just couldn't get over the fact that I legitimately failed a test. I just really grinded on the final and I passed. I was so worried I wasn't gonna pass. Anything's possible, kids. But this class was basically about like virtual memory, just the organization of like memory, main memory, secondary memory, like the ARM architecture. I remember learning about that. I do think we did like assembly language programs as assignments. My friends did well in it, so maybe it was just me that thought it was hard. And then also EECS 145. This was basically just like a math class. I honestly just got an A+ in this class because the teacher would just use like the homework problems or like the practice exam problems on his tests, so I knew how to do them. And then EECS 170A was another circuits class. Okay, so EECS 170A was about semiconductors, transistors, amplifiers, stuff like that. Honestly, I don't like circuits. It's not my thing. Sorry if you're really interested in the electrical engineering side of computer engineering. For the electrical engineering parts, like, it was interesting to learn. And respect to electrical engineers because that stuff is hard, but I slowly realized that I should have been a computer science major. I chose computer engineering because I didn't know if I wanted to do hardware or software, so computer engineering is like in the middle. The electrical engineering and like the hardware stuff is interesting, so I don't necessarily regret taking it. I also took EECS 199, which was individual studies. Basically the class you sign up for if you do research with a professor. The reason I did EECS 199 was because a professor actually approached me and my friend to do some drone research for him, so we did that for him, which was really cool and really fun to do. And if you want to get into doing research with a professor, just go their office hours, see if they have anything available or open, or just like get to know them and what they're researching and what they're doing as well. If they have something open, they might just approach you like my professor approached me and my friend. I also took SAE Electric Race Car. That was a project at our school where basically engineers build an electric race car and then you enter into a competition. I was on the embedded team where we did like data acquisition for the car. Like I helped with like the wheel speed sensor and also the tire temperature sensor, stuff like that. I mainly did it for like experience and I had like friends in it too, which made it really fun. We're on to the 2020 winter quarter, my junior year. So this is the quarter that COVID struck. Like late in this quarter is when like we had to move out because of COVID and everything. The classes that I took were EECS 112L, so the lab for the EECS 112 class that I thought I was going to fail. And I actually got an A+ in this class. I understood the organization of computers a lot better in this class. Basically in this class it was a lot more project oriented than just like lesson oriented. We used a Verilog, I think, in order to code a entire MIPS processor. So basically each assignment is basically just like a building block in order to create a full-on processor. The assignments, they were definitely doable and not too difficult, and they're pretty straightforward. And then EECS 114 is a very important class, especially for me wanting to go into software engineering. It's the data structures and algorithms class. Like you already have learned about like arrays and linked lists, but then you also learn about hash tables, hash maps, queues, stacks, stuff like that. Then you also learn a bunch of classic computer science algorithms like Dijkstra's, breadth first search, depth first search, things that you need to know when going into a technical coding interview. So this class is super important if you want to go into software engineering. We learned about like time complexity, big O, notation and everything, and that was just like a mind-blowing thing to learn about. It was so confusing to me at first personally how to derive big O notation, especially just for the more complicated algorithms for like merge sort and stuff like that. Once you do practice it gets a lot easier. So this is a super important class for me and I took a lot away from it. Like even when I was studying for my interviews, I would look at my notes from this class. And then I also took EECS 170B, again, just another advanced circuit class. So this is about design and analysis of single-stage amplifiers, inverters, logic gates, and memory-based elements based on CMOS transistors. Actually, this class was kind of interesting because we did learn about like how memory is stored in circuits and stuff. And then again, I did the EECS 199, which is just the research with the professor that I did. And then again, did electric race car. Like I mentioned, this was also the quarter that COVID struck, so I didn't have any finals basically for any of these classes because everyone was stressed out moving back home during finals week and everything. Either the final was canceled or it was optional, which was really nice because it was definitely an insanely stressful time. And then 2020 spring quarter, the spring quarter of my junior year, this was our first online Zoom University quarter. So fun. This was definitely very different. So let's start off with EECS 111. I really enjoyed this class. It's system software, basically just learning about how operating systems and just how the software in a computer works, learning about pipelining, concurrency, throughput, virtual memory, the memory architecture again, multi-core CPUs. You also learn about threading, multi-threading. You do learn about multi-threading in previous classes, but this class emphasized more on it. This class was honestly really interesting to me personally. I did utilize it in a part-time job that I got my senior year, which I'll talk about in a little bit. I do use this knowledge like in interviews. And then also took EECS 113, processor hardware / software interface, I believe. And this class was supposed to be like our embedded systems class, because if you're computer engineering, like the ideal field for you to go in is embedded, because that's both hardware and software. It honestly wasn't that great. The projects were really easy, honestly, and the lectures sucked. The professor just posted videos from like 2012 and they were so outdated and so old. They weren't worth watching. I honestly just did the assignments and they were pretty easy. You could do them on your own. Also, I took EECS 148, which was an Introduction to Computer Networks class. This class was also pretty interesting because we learned about IP addresses and how mail gets sent through SMTP, I think, or TCP, UDP, just network protocols like that. That was really interesting to learn because I had no prior knowledge of how any of that worked. I also used that information when I was interviewing. Also, I took ICS 6B. It's very similar to ICS 6D. I honestly can't remember the difference between them. Just like Boolean algebra and just logic concepts like that. Yeah, we are moving on to my senior year, which was entirely online. Also, I wanted to note that in between my junior and senior year that summer, I got a job as a junior software engineer at a small database company, and that was also online as well. That experience was really nice because I got to kind of utilize what I learned in school to a real life job, and it honestly felt really rewarding. And I spent that summer and then the rest of my senior year doing that job part-time. I wanted to do the job during my senior year because I wanted to just demonstrate to future employers that I'm just a really hard worker. I could do a part-time engineering job and do all of my hard engineering courses at the same time, and I just kind of wanted to test myself and like push my limits and challenge myself to do that job with school. So then going into my senior year, my fall quarter, again online, I took EECS 116. This was one of the electives we could take. I really enjoyed this class because we learned about SQL and relational databases, and this was really helpful for my job because I worked at like a small database company. And also my teacher worked with one of the creators of SQL, Don Chamberlain, and he actually did like a guest lecture for us, which was really cool. I also took EECS 118. I honestly didn't learn anything in that class. The topics just didn't seem relevant. It was easy, but like it was not helpful at all. And then we have EECS 119, which was VLSI design. Basically, our assignments were just to design logic gates or logic equations, and that was like kind of interesting because it had to do with like memory sometimes. And then we also had the senior design project, EECS 159A. So the senior design project, you're basically just supposed to form a group with your fellow classmates or friends in engineering and make any kind of project you want. You can also go into an existing senior design project, which is what me and my group did. We approached a professor that we wanted to work with, and he had an existing senior design project that he offered. So we had to design like a system that would tell a car where to park in a parking garage. Your senior design project could honestly be as hard or as easy as you want it to be. Winter quarter was basically my last real quarter of engineering classes. So I took Engineering 190W, which is Communications in the Professional World. It's basically an engineering class where they teach you how to communicate with regards to engineering. It also teaches you about ethics in engineering, which should be just like common sense. We got to work in a group of other engineering majors. We would like come up with like a prototype of a new technology. For me and my group, we did like this wearable bracelet that could track your location and like alert the police if you're in danger. Like you just like press a button. Basically, your paper revolves around that product, saying like estimated cost and like the proposal part and like possible problems that could arise and how the technology is going to work, and kind of like it's basically a huge proposal of that project that you would present to like a board of like investors or something like that. And then also another elective class that I took was EECS 101, which was machine vision. This class was also super interesting because you just learned basically how like computer cameras like worked, learning about how making a computer kind of work, how the human eye works as well, which was really interesting. The tests were kind of similar to the practice exams that he would give. The program assignments were honestly also like pretty easy as well. They had to do a lot with the theory. And then again, EECS 159B, that was the same senior design project. It just went on for 2 quarters. And then I also took African American Studies 40B. That was just one of the general education classes I had to take. And then this quarter, it's 2021 spring quarter, I'm taking 1 class. I'm taking my last GE, and it's East Asian Studies 55. I'm basically just learning about Japanese literature, and it's a really fun, chill, easy class, so I'm kind of just chilling. Throughout this whole senior year, I've also been working part-time, so this quarter I was also working part-time, and I ramped up my hours working since I'm only working 1 class. But yeah, that's my experience at UCI. It honestly has been a great experience. Really grateful for this education that I've been able to have, and just grateful. Like I really don't have any words for it. Grateful for all the friends that I've made. Yeah, am I gonna announce it? I have a full-time job lined up after I graduate, so it really did set me up for success. Just also remember, you do have to do outside work. You can't just go through the motions. You can't just do the classes, pass the test. You know, you do have to study for interviews. You do have to do outside projects, learn new things just outside of school if you do want to be really successful at the end of it. Getting a full-time offer is not easy. You can't just go through the courses and expect to get a full-time offer at the end of it. You really have to do more than the classes, and you really have to work extra hard. And every single person that I know that has a full-time offer, they've done extra. They've done extra projects. They've done extra research. They've studied really hard for interviews. If you're thinking about taking up this major, I would encourage you to do it. It's really hard, but it is really, really rewarding. If you're thinking about taking up this major and have any more questions, I know what I touched on is just like the surface of everything. If you have any more questions, feel free to comment below. Even like DM me on Instagram or anything. I'll put my Instagram right here. So thank you for watching this video if you watched it. I don't really expect anyone to be watching this video. It's mainly just for me and my memories. I'm so grateful to be graduating and just grateful for this experience. Okay, that's it. Bye.